Welcome to The Explainer. Let's talk about product strategy. Is your company's strategy a crystal clear roadmap that everyone follows? Or is it getting a little lost in translation somewhere? Well, a brand new report suggests that for most teams, there's a huge disconnect. And today, we're going to break down exactly why.
Seriously, take a second and think about it. Is it a real guide that helps you make tough decisions? Or is it something a little more, fuzzy? A recent report asked hundreds of product pros that very same question, and wow, their answers show a pretty massive gap between what leadership thinks and what the people on the front lines are actually experiencing. Just look at this number, almost 62%. That's how many product professionals are what the report calls doubters. They believe their company's strategy needs a significant overhaul. We're talking nearly 2/3 of the people who are supposed to be building the future of the company. That's a big deal. And this isn't just some random online poll. All this data comes from a global report that surveyed over 200 product professionals from all over the world. So let's dive into these details and figure out what's really going on behind that 62% number.
Okay, first things first. To really get what the problem is, we need to understand who we're even talking about. Who are the people in the trenches doing the work of product strategy every day?
So take a look at who answered the survey. It's not a bunch of executives in some ivory tower. The vast majority are individual contributors. We're talking product managers and senior PMs. The people on the front lines who actually have to execute on this strategy day in and day out.
And you might think, oh, this is probably just a startup problem. Or maybe it's only an issue with giant corporations. Nope. The data shows an almost perfect split between tiny companies and massive enterprises. The big takeaway here? These strategy problems, they're everywhere.
And we're not talking about rookies here. The bulk of the people who responded have somewhere between 3 and 15 years of experience. They've been around the block a few times. They have the battle scars, they know what a good strategy looks like, and they definitely know when one isn't working.
All right, so we know who we're hearing from, experienced people on the front lines from companies of all sizes. So now let's get to the juicy part. Where exactly is this whole strategy thing breaking down?
The report frames this in a really interesting way by asking teams what they're great at versus what they're not so great at. And the answers, well, they tell a story of two completely different priorities.
So on the strength side, this is probably no surprise to anyone, customer focus is number one. For years, the big mantra has been know your customer. And it seems like product teams feel like they've got that part down cold. They also think their plans are pretty realistic and actionable. So far, so good. But now, let's flip the coin. Check out the weaknesses. The number one problem is measurability. Teams are basically screaming, we know who our customers are, but we have no idea how to measure if we're actually succeeding. And wait a second, see vision alignment there? It was a top strength, and now it's a top weakness. That tells you everything you need to know about the chaos inside these organizations.
And this gap gets even wider when you look at what teams say is important versus what their strategies actually talk about. Okay, so target customers, opportunity prioritization, those are pretty close. But look down at risk management. Over 40% of people say it's critical, but less than a third say their strategy even addresses it. That is a huge, glaring blind spot.
So this leads to a pretty massive question, right? If the official strategy has all these holes and you can't even measure success, then how in the world do the big, risky, company-defining decisions actually get the green light?
Well, the good news is pragmatic stuff like pilot programs leads the way. That's smart. But here's the kicker. Look at what's in third place. Almost 31% of validation comes from simply agreeing with whatever the executives want. Let's be honest, that's not validation. That's just political survival.
And this next slide, this gets to the absolute core of the frustration. When asked how they work with leadership, the number one response was, we try to challenge them, but we fail to influence them. Just let that sink in. Nearly a third of product teams feel like they see a better way forward, but they just can't get the buy-in to actually change course.
Okay, so we've got the diagnosis. It's a pretty clear crisis of measurability, alignment, and influence. So what's the prescription? What does the report say is the path to a healthier product strategy?
What people are asking for isn't rocket science. It really starts with better systems for tracking goals, which directly tackles that measurability weakness. And crucially, it requires getting real, genuine support from senior leaders, not just orders from on high.
And when we look to the future, there's one trend that's on everybody's mind.
Over two-thirds, 67% of product pros, believe that AI and machine learning will be the single biggest thing shaping their strategy in 2025.
But hold on. Before we declare the age of AI strategy is here, the data shows we are still in the very, very early days. More than a quarter of teams aren't using AI for strategy at all, and most of the rest are just kind of dipping their toes in the water. The revolution hasn't fully arrived yet.
So the report leaves us with a really clear playbook for the year ahead. It's about turning these big weaknesses into strengths. First, solve that measurability problem so you can build trust. Second, get better at the political game of managing up to get real buy-in. Third, realize that communication and alignment are the work. And finally, use tools like AI smartly to make you better, not to replace your judgment.
And it all comes down to this one powerful idea from the report that I think just nails it. An adequate strategy that has real buy-in from the organization will succeed. The best, most brilliant strategy in the world that's poorly communicated is doomed to fail. In other words, alignment beats perfection. Every single time.
And that really leaves us with one last question to take back to your own team. I want you to take a hard, honest look at your strategy. Is it a real map? Is it something tangible that guides your team through tough choices? Or is it just a wish collecting digital dust in a slide deck somewhere?